This event could not have been possible without the generous help of the following Platinum partners: PropertyRadar and Sean O'Toole, Housing Wire, the Apartment Owners Association, the San Diego Creative Real Estate Investors Association and President Bill Tan, Investors Workshops and Sean Watkins, Angel Bronzegeist and Sarah Benora, Invest Club for Women and Iris Veneration and Bobby Alexander, San Jose Real Estate Investors Association and Geraldine Barry, MVT Productions, Rhoda Construction, Wilson Investment Properties, and White House Catering. For event video and information, visit isurvivedrealestate.com. The Norris Group would like to thank its gold sponsors for supporting I Survived Real Estate: Adrenaline Athletics, Claudia Buys Houses, Coldwell Banker Town & Country, Elite Auctions, Phoebe, for investors by investors, Home Vestors, In a Day Development, Inland Empire Investors Forum, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Investor Experts, Inc., John Merrill Investments, Inc., Keystone CPA, Las Brisas Escrow, Lavis Associates, Northern California Real Estate Investors Association, Northern San Diego Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Investment Club Phoebe, Personal Real Estate Magazine, Pilot Limo, Primary Residential Mortgage, Realty 411 Magazine, Real Wealth Network, REIExpo.com, Rick and Leanne Rossiter, Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors, Sonoka Corporation, Spinnaker Loans, UDirect IRA, Tony Alvarez, The Bottom Feeders, Tri-Emerald Financial Group, and Westin South Coast Plaza. See isurvivedrealestate.com for video of the live event and more on our sponsors.
Well, welcome to I Survived Real Estate 2013. I am Aaron Norris, and I will be your MC for this evening. Thank you. Thanks again, all the Platinum partners, for helping out tonight. Zane Forshee, the classical guitarist, flew all the way from Maryland as a favor for me tonight for your entertainment. Thank you, Zane. Lord knows it would not be appetizing if you had me playing guitar for you this evening. And special thanks to our TNG team who's migrated over the years to the very back of the room. Craig Hill, Robin, Rhonda, Vicky, Greg, Rich, Amy, Ken, Donna, Joe, Kirsten, Alicia, for being a part of the incredible team. And a very special thanks to Diana Barley, who had the distinct privilege of seating 450 people and setting the tables tonight. So I Survived Real Estate has always been about a cause and a conversation. Tonight, we have blown away all past records for raising money. We've together raised $90,000 this year alone. That's pretty great. For those that are tuning in at home, not here, which is unfortunate, but we ran out 3 weeks ago of seats, which is the first time we've ever sold out that early. I Survive Real Estate is underwritten by the Norris Group, so 100% of the money we raise here goes to charity. Some of the audience members tonight actually didn't have a dime out of their own pocket. They simply created a giving page on our site run by Make-A-Wish, asked their friends, colleagues, whoever would just donate, and they're here just because they decided to raise over $200. But some of them raised a lot of money. Actually, 20 people participated, actually over that amount, raising over $12,000. And if you could stand, if you participated in the individual fundraising competition this year, that would be awesome. Where are you? You're all up front somewhere. Oh, come on, guys. And Tim Gordon, this gentleman right here, is our fundraising winner, $1,100. Thank you, sir. You did an awesome job. So our efforts tonight benefit two very important charities that benefit children struggling with life-threatening illnesses. And I'm going to call Lainey Strauss up. She is with St. Jude, one of the beneficiaries of tonight, and we're going to watch a short film, and she's going to talk to us. Hang on.
She had a high fever for about 9 days, and she was, very dehydrated. They checked some of her counts. Her counts looked really, really low.
We did, at the time, don't know what counts are. We were still normal parents going to the pediatrician, just pricking her finger.
They told us that your daughter doesn't have cancer, like it's just a fever virus that apparently is attacking her bone marrow.
We went home.
And just focused on the new baby we had coming,
right.
But, I think we knew something was wrong.
Your daughter has leukemia. You need to fly to St. Jude in Memphis tomorrow morning. They kept telling us how wonderful St. Jude was in Memphis. You'll be amazed. You'll be so happy you'll be treated there. And at the time, we kept hoping this, we don't want cancer. We don't want any of that, so we don't really care. When you walk in the building and you see the murals on the wall and you see all the colors, it doesn't feel like a hospital. We had a joke the first week we were here that we had not seen anyone who worked at St. Jude that was unhappy. It was like anyone you come across, everyone was happy all the time. We were like, what is this place? Anna James thinks it's a vacation to come here. We say we're going to St. Jude Hospital. They get excited. This is fun.
And when we don't bring one of them, it's devastating. How could you not bring me to St. Jude Hospital?
'Yay! Today is our last dose of IV chemo after 2.5 years.
Patients have the cutest smileys.
It's a very big day. End of treatment, finished with the protocol. She's done.
Love to see you every day, but now's the time we get to say, pack up your bags, get out the door, you don't get chemo anymore.
Our team has been reassuring us from the beginning that her chances of relapse are pretty low. We shouldn't be that worried about it, but you just can't help but have that fear. All the children have lost their battles. I think about them every day. By name, the ones we've met that didn't make it, and you just can't help but keep it with you.
Well, and there'll be a time when she'll come home late, when she's 16, and we'll catch her sneaking in, and we'll say something, like, I just can't believe with everything
I know, really.
we did for you.
I did for you.
How could you do this to me and your mother?
She's in for a lot of that, I think. Poor child.
I know, it's going to be her whole life.
Three hours of traffic. She made it.
That's right, 3 hours of traffic, but it was worth it because I get to be in a room with all of you people who help make it possible to do what we do. As you saw in the video, I'm proud to say that none of those patients ever see a bill. And that's one of the most important things that I can say to you, because with many of the treatments, some of them cost up to $1 million, and the patients never have to worry about paying for that. All they have to worry about is caring for their child, which is enough. That's enough to worry about. I spoke with a family not too long ago, and their son had gone to another children's hospital and gotten very good treatment, but he needed more, and he wasn't able to get it because insurance said, I'm sorry, we can't give you any more. You've exceeded your amount. That's something that never happens at St. Jude. We can treat children just based on their needs. We never have to say no. And the reason why we never have to say no is because of generous people like you in this room. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you for that. Because if it's $5, $10, $100, $5,000, whatever it is that you give, it goes directly to the children. And that's how we are able to do what we do for those children. So thank you. And I'm going to give you So I was here last year, and it was another beautiful event, and I'm so glad to be back again. And thank you, Aaron, and the Norris Group, and everybody who helps make this possible. I don't know if you remember, but last year I had mentioned the overall survival rates for cancer, and they used to be 10% years ago, and now we were up to over 80%. And that's including all forms of cancer, so. And every day our gifted physicians are working towards more cures. One thing that we're really proud of is we're building the world's only proton therapy tower at St. Jude. It's a $20 million project, and it is done by donations. And we're really grateful for that. So we will now, yes, thank you. Thank you. And for those of you who haven't heard about proton therapy, it is an amazing breakthrough what they're doing now. It's a pencil-thin laser beam that is able to target cancerous cells while leaving healthy cells alone. So the beam doesn't go through the brain, and it's able to stop before hitting healthy tissue, which means that we can now work on certain tumors that were previously inoperable. So that is a huge breakthrough. So we're really proud of that. My hope for all of you is that through the research done at St. Jude, which does go far and wide, well beyond even cancer, they cured sickle cell through bone marrow transplants. That was started at St. Jude. That used to be a complete death sentence. Now people are able to go on and live a full life. And we are also now able to treat a lot of things that we weren't before. And for those of you also who aren't aware, St. Jude has an infectious diseases wing that is first stop whenever there is a worldwide bird flu, anything like that. St. Jude touches that, pediatric AIDS, many other things beyond that. And not only do we cover treatment, we cover schooling, housing, so the families can stay together. We do everything we can to take the burden off the families and keep them intact. There's a St. Jude school. We do St. Jude prom for teenagers. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And they get to go to prom with other kids just like them. And they get to go to school. And we pay for flights and food and housing. And that, again, is all done because of you. So I'm going to let you enjoy your evening now and shut up. But thank you so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
That's just one tonight. Sarah, I'm so afraid I'm going to butcher your name. No, it's Pizzaruso? Close enough? Yes. We're going to watch a video really quick, and then we're going to bring Sarah Pizzaruso up.
Alex here? Alex, how are you? So guess what? The Riddler has escaped from the Orange County Jail. So I need a little boy with superhero powers to help me. Will you help me?
Yeah.
Okay, come with me. Let's go.
How you doing? I'm Raul Casal. I'm Chief of Police. How are you? Congratulations, you're an honorary police officer. There he is.
Oh my gosh.
Alex, or should I say Robin?
Dispatch to Batman and Robin. Dispatch to Batman and Robin. I'm here. Batman and Robin, you're to go to the Wild West wagon camp. Our top secret spies are telling us the crooked cowboys are fighting with the sheriff.
Batman! Robin! Thank gosh you're here. We need you to go in here. It's there.
Freeze him. Use your freeze gun. How do you feel?
Robin here. Go to the Seven Seas Lagoon. Our top secret spies are watching several pirates steal treasure from the pirate ship right now.
Robin, freeze him! Robin, freeze him! Robin, freeze him! All right, we got him. That was good. Good job.
Dispatch to Batman and Robin. Robin here. We still don't know where the Riddler is hiding. We think you'll have a better chance of finding him if you get a bird's eye view of the city.
Very fun. Well, we found the Riddler's place.
Oh, you did?
We found him.
Yeah, no, so fun!
Terrific. You found the Riddler's hideout. Now go capture him before he gets away again.
Batman and Robin.
Robin, you get Riddler!
You solved all my riddles.
Good job, Robin. Good job. Robin, you did a fantastic job today against the Cowboys, against the Pirates, in the helicopter ride, and against Riddler and his henchmen. You did very well. I'm proud of you. Anaheim is proud of you. Your parents are proud of you. Your friends are proud of you. We're all proud of you, Alex. Great job today.
The entire city thanking you, Robin, for catching those guys. And we just want to say one big thank you for making our city safe. Thank you, Robin. So on behalf of all the men and women of the Anaheim Police Department, I want to present you with a badge.
Undescribable. I mean, to see my son have a wish of his come true, it makes everything in my life perfect. I mean, to see him smile, to see him have fun like that as a mom, it just makes me so fulfilled, and nothing gets any better than that.
Sarah with Make-A-Wish, please.
Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Aaron. As you already know, at Make-A-Wish, we grant wishes for kids with life-threatening medical conditions. Our mission is to enrich the human experience with hope, strength, and joy. Now, it does seem pretty obvious that granting a wish would give our wish kids hope, strength, and joy. But the surprising part is how that mission extends well beyond just the children themselves. A few months ago, we met 7-year-old Alex, who is battling leukemia. A huge comic book fan, Alex's simple wish was to fight crime and help people. He loves Batman and could think of nothing more exciting than spending the day with his hero, battling bad guys, and maybe being in a movie. You just saw Alex's wish come true just 2 weeks ago. From being called to the police chief's office to be sworn in, to chasing the Riddler around the city, to finally putting away his nemesis for good, it was an adventure unlike any other. Now, I knew as the wish was being planned how it might change this little superhero's life, but I wasn't prepared for the ripple effect. You see, I spent the day with Alex's mom. A mother of 3 small children, she rarely gets the chance to indulge her oldest son's elaborate fantasies. Instead, as a parent of a child battling a life-threatening illness, she often plays the role of the bad guy, the shuttler to the hospital for treatment, the enforcer of playtime rules when things get a little too rough for Alex and his compromised immune system, and the constant worrier. But that day, she watched in awe as everything Alex dreamed of unfolded right before him. She watched him giggle as his costume was presented to him. She laughed as he radioed his fellow officers to tell them that the Riddler was in his sights. And she heard him yell from the helicopter just before it took off, "This is a dream come true." I realized then that the wish didn't just give Alex hope, strength, and joy. It gave the same to his mom and dad. And now, as we continue to tell the stories of the day, I've noticed something even more amazing. It wasn't just the family that received a wish that day. It was the police officers and stuntmen who put on the performance of a lifetime. It was the volunteers who helped put it together. It was the film crew, the helicopter pilot, and the damsel in distress. And it was the crowd in the hero's welcome ceremony. Hundreds of us in just that one afternoon. Alex's wish left us all filled with hope, strength, and joy. That's the power of Make-A-Wish. This year, our chapter will grant 315 wishes like Alex's for kids from all over Orange County and the Inland Empire. That's a wish every 27 hours. We will also assist with over 600 wishes from kids from all over the world who visit us to see local sites like Disneyland or meet their favorite celebrity. Unfortunately, according to the Centers for Disease Control, we are still only reaching about half of the eligible children in our area. But thanks to your support today, you'll help us reach our goal to make sure every kid facing a life-threatening medical condition will have the opportunity to live out their truest wish, just like Alex. On behalf of everyone at Make-A-Wish, our staff, our volunteers, our board of directors, and most importantly, our Wish Kids, I thank each and every one of you here tonight for the incredible support, especially our friends at the Norris Group. Before I go, I'd like to bring Lainey back up to join me for a special presentation for Aaron. Aaron, we are proud to present you with this Adopt-A-Wish plaque commemorating Michelle's wish to visit the Disney Aulani Resort in Hawaii. With friends like you and all of you here tonight, we know that we can help turn life-threatening illnesses into life-affirming triumphs. Thanks you so much.
How do you think about it? Can you get them all on stage too? We'll do it later.
Well, to be honest with you, we share this with you, and thank you. If you ever want to come see it in our office, drop by. We're there. You know, it's become tradition since we started this 6 years ago. If you're here honoring somebody who's dealt with cancer, dealing with cancer, will you please stand? Thank you. So, awesome causes. That's why we're here tonight. Many of you become family to the Norris Group over the years, and we just really appreciate you being here. So, with that, now we're on to the incredible conversation. We've brought in 6 people, some thought leaders in real estate from around the country, and they've joined us here tonight. Hopefully the conversation on stage tonight gives us a better idea of what remains in 2013 and what we can look forward to in 2014. If you would take a moment to silence your cell phones, vibrate would be great. If you plan on unwrapping any hard candy, do it now. You know who you are. You know who you are. And if you missed something tonight, don't worry, we are recording it. This will air on the radio show, and it's also going to be on YouTube. If you like it, please share with your friends and family. I'd now like to introduce the host for this evening. He's been in real estate for over 30 years. He's been part of thousands of transactions as builder, investor, and hard money lender. He hosts our weekly award-winning radio show and spends much of his time researching nerdy things like congressional bills, bailouts, and economic trends. And he's also our only black belt as of 2 weeks ago in the office. Bruce Norris.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing tonight with us again. Many years ago, I attended a Jim Rohn seminar, and he inspired me to write goals. And goals are sort of lies that you tell, you pretend they're true, and then you work until they are. And I wrote 2 of them that first night that were complete fabrications, and one of them was, that I get up to speak and I get a standing ovation. That was a ridiculous lie. If I had had the guts to write a third one, it would have been that Sensei Palayuso, who's a very dear friend of mine, I bow into him and he hands me a black belt. And I would like him to stand along with his wife. Sensei Palayuso and Sandy are very dear friends, and they have the most unusual business that literally is a legacy business where people bring their grandkids and say, I took karate here 35 years ago, and this is where you're going to take it. So, wuss. This will be the briefest presentation I probably have ever done because, to be honest with you, I'm more interested in asking questions of our panel than I am telling you what I think. There's a lot of very special people on the panel that have some insights that I would like to understand a little better. And a lot of you have heard me speak about this type of subject before. I feel more optimistic about where we land price-wise probably than anybody on the panel. If I'm wrong, I'd sure like to know, and you'd probably like to know it too. So I'm not going to avoid questions that challenge things that I've told you, okay? That's what's the point of this. The point is we have the best and brightest people in the country, and I would like to ask them questions to see if I can clarify where my opinion differs from theirs. And so that'll be what's fun tonight. It means we're going to disagree. Isn't that good? Yeah, and so we'll bat it around a little bit. Okay. The event's called I Survive Real Estate, but last year wasn't really about surviving, was it? It was kind of fun. So those of us that owned real estate, it went up, and we kind of like that. And so that's been the first time in a while that we can say we had aggressive price increases, and that caught a lot of people by surprise, and they didn't see that one coming. This is the supply of people that are underwater. So you have a big price increase, this number drops. And not only does it drop down to 15%, but that 15% has got to be encouraged to say, you know what, I might as well hang in there. I've hung in this long, and so you start having other side effects, like they're not going to default. What's interesting is we've accomplished this price increase without a big boom in sales. That's sales over the last few years, and it's been kind of consistent, but it hasn't been extraordinary. As a matter of fact, you look at this chart, this is going back further. California sales really are at a pretty mild level. The mix is different, and we'll talk about that, and I'm going to ask some questions about that, but the sales are not extraordinary, and yet there goes our inventory. Why I think I land on a different space than most people is I've studied this inventory chart, and when you're at 3 months of inventory, if you have more than 3 months of demand, would it make sense that you should have some pricing pressure? Well, we went down from 6 months to below 3 months on demand that's been very consistent. I believe that demand still exists, and it's landing on inventory half of the level that it could be. And so I think we're going to have price aggression. That would make sense to me. Now, one of the things we have to figure out is somebody going to loan to us? So, and that's up for grabs. And a lot of things changed January 10th, and we'll talk about that. Another factor is, and this is why John Burns is here, to bring up a piece of puzzle we haven't seen emerge in any great quantity, new home builders. Are they going to give us a lot of inventory? Is that going to be a piece of the puzzle that changes the scenario? These are the new housing permits. Now, I just spent an hour a couple nights ago listening to his interview of 3 of the presidents of, 2 of them were public builders and 1 was a private builder. And they're very optimistic about the future, and yet this is the chart of subdivisions in Riverside County and San Bernardino County. So we have a group of builders that are pretty happy about the future and not creating any subdivisions. So I really would like to get to the bottom of that, because I wonder if there's something else I don't know. I don't know what a lot of these people know that's specific to their industry. And that's why tonight's fun. I get to ask questions I don't know the answer to. Now, when you have a radio show, you don't do that unless you are dealing with an expert, by the way. You can't just have 30 seconds of dry time and go, boy, I thought he would know that. I don't know it either. But tonight I'll take some of that risk. Well, that's a slow-moving chart. The share of equity sales, there's going to be a line show up eventually. Or maybe that's what, I have to push the button again. The equity sales have grown and grown and grown. Well, that chart doesn't look to me like it's going to go the other way. And so here's a good question. When you have an equity seller, what do they do the day their house closes? They buy another one. I don't know how you go from 3 months of inventory to 6 months of inventory if that's the predominant seller and they're going to buy another property. There's also this group of people that were foreclosed on. Sorry, not that group. That's another group. That's a lot of people. But what about the people that hung in there perfectly current and now they have equity? There's a thought that says that those people are going to be so happy to get out of home ownership, they're going to sell and become a renter. If any group has proven they want to own something more important than the numbers, it's that group. So I'm not buying that. So I just don't know how we lack demand. Oh, there's the other one. I didn't push the button enough, I guess. Okay. And there's another one. Doggone it. What's that saying is the mix of sales is definitely headed toward equity sellers, and all of the things that I feel could damage price is now becoming a non-issue. All of the factors that add inventory to the mix are improving as far as motivated sellers. We have improved in delinquency rates, improved foreclosure rates. We have Sean O'Toole from what used to be ForeclosureRadar, now PropertyRadar, and he's snuck in a fast one on me when we were in the car. Sure enough, he's looked at charts he didn't tell me about, so he's got some statistics I didn't know existed, but we'll talk about it because it has to do with price aggression in what happened to the median price and where did it land? Did it land mostly on distressed assets or normal sales? Mortgage rate. You see in the paper all the time, mortgage rates have soared. You know? When you get into a business in 1980 and 81 and you refinanced your house to become an investor at 17.5%, 4.5% isn't soaring. It's the mildest thing you've ever seen in your life except for the last 12 months. So I guess the point is, yeah, we had an interest rate hike, but did it price enough people out? And so Leslie Appleton-Young, and they're really one of the favorite things they like to talk about is affordability. And so we'll talk about that chart and see if there's still enough room for people to get in. And there's the affordability chart. So we're down all the way to 36. Oh my. I'm not afraid of that number. Okay. We're going to talk with Christopher Thornberg a little bit about GDP growth because that has to do with the future of interest rates. So we're going to see enough GDP growth that the Fed says, okay, we're going to quit helping everything out. And all of a sudden interest rates do a major shift. Unemployment, it's coming down, still has a ways to go. California is still a bigger number than the nation, getting closer and closer though. International buyers certainly have picked up. That number has changed from 2012 now at 8%, a fair amount of them all cash. So it's interesting. What is the history of foreign buyers? As prices accelerate, do they go away or they become stronger in volume? We'll talk about that. First-time buyers, and this is one chart that really is very different than normal. When you come off of a bottom, the normal number of sales, and this doesn't go back enough, but percentage of sales usually at first-time buyers, let's say in 95 and 6 was about 50%. And now we're at 28. So it'd be really interesting to see why they're not participating. Are they getting beat out by all cash buyers or they can't qualify? What's the story? Because that number is the missing link to demand to me. That's where I think a lot of demand is possible if they can get a loan. We'll talk about the credit score differences. This is I don't know if I can, if you look at that chart on top, you'll see the aggressiveness of 2008 where we were loaning to people that had FICO scores very different than we are now. And so there's category, this is for FHA, 300 FICO score to 579. I didn't know you could have a 300 FICO score. But we were loaning 23% of all the FHA loans to that group, and then to under 639, 36%. So 60% of FHA's credit was going to that group. In case you wonder why we have some losses, that could be part of it. But now, what are we loaning? We're loaning 9% to those people. So we're going to talk to Debra about, have we gone too far, and what's about to happen January 10th to the mortgage industry, because I think we can have an aggressive year, but we got to have somebody say yes to a loan. And so all of these things are important. FHA is declining. And what's odd about that is you just had a group of buyers that used to own that showed up after 3 years of a foreclosure. And can they get a Fannie Mae loan? No. This is the loan they will get. But the numbers are staggering. And those of you that have seen the presentations before, in Riverside and San Bernardino County, a year-and-a-half supply of demand were foreclosed on in 08 and 09. 3 years later, they could re-enter the market and get an FHA loan. But they probably had a hard time competing with all the cash buyers. So I'm not buying that demand has been met. I think it's yet to be fulfilled. Fannie and Freddie are the market. By the way, I want to thank Leslie Appleton-Young and Sean O'Toole for generously always letting me use their charts. What's funny is we interpret them different, but it's really cool to have all their research. It really is. And what this chart does, if you look all the way to the left, those were the days where we had something other than Fannie and Freddie and FHA funding loans. And now we don't. And so that's a real concern going forward, is if the goal was to downsize Fannie and Freddie, okay, well then how are we going to fund loans? And so that's real important. Also, we're going to talk about the lowering of the loan amounts. This is one of my favorite all-time pictures in 2005, Home Sweet Home. The timing wasn't good, you know. We felt really happy about that, but it didn't turn out that it was going to continue. In 2014, I don't know if it's going to be that kind of year or another time cover in 2010 where it said, rethinking home ownership. Is home ownership now really a bad idea? And so I would land on this square, and we're going to see how it plays out. But I think the reasoning of a strong up movement in price still exists in 2014 as it did in 2013. And we'll see how it plays out, and I'm really going to enjoy having conversations with everybody on the panel tonight. So we're going to start our night with calling up Christopher Thornberg first. Dr. Thornberg is an expert in the study of regional economies, real estate dynamics, labor markets, and business forecasting. He's been involved in a number of special studies measuring the impact of important events in the economy, including the NAFTA treaty, California power crisis, pool security.
You don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I do. And September 11th terrorist attacks. All right. Glad you're with us. Have a seat right there. That would probably be anywhere to my right. Okay? Actually, Christopher's probably the first person I remember thinking, I can ask this man anything, and I don't have to know the answer. That was quite a relief. For the first time, we're joined by John Burns. John and his 40-person team advise executives on major residential real estate industry decisions all over the country. The company is on the retainer with many of the largest companies in real estate and investment industries, producing ongoing research and advice. I witnessed something that's very important to me. I watched an hour presentation that he had where he was a moderator, and he had several people on his panel. And what I witnessed, I've only seen rarely, and that was complete trust of the people he was asking questions of from their point of view. This man has a lot of credibility, and I'm glad he's here tonight because there's a piece of the puzzle I'm confused by, and John, I'm really glad that you're here. And it took... Wherever you want to sit, it's fine. And if you think about where your business model came from, was mostly talking with builders, and then you have a completely different, or at least a growing set of clients, that was a good accomplishment.
If I was hanging out with home builders, I wouldn't have my business today.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah. That was a good thing to diversify. Christopher, I think I'm going to start with you and talk a little bit about what you see as 2014's GDP growth as far as the country, because the reason I want to ask that is I want to back that into, are interest rates going to be radically different or very much the same?
Well, okay, there's two questions there, and they don't actually relate as well as you think they do. So we're going to have to really two answers.
So I'm starting off on the right foot.
Right, yeah. Look, as for the economy, the fundamentals of our economy today have substantially improved. There's no doubt about it. Corporations make a lot of money. Labor market's starting to tighten up. Incomes are rising at a better pace. Obviously, real estate's starting to turn the corner. Banks are healthier, at least in terms of profits and losses and all that kind of stuff. The biggest problem we have, of course, are our, shall we say, elected leaders in Washington, D.C., who seem desperate to upset the apple cart at some level. We just, of course, ran into this nonsense over the debt ceiling. It's not over. They extended it for 90 days. Some folks claim that they won't shut the government down again because Republicans took enough of a black eye that they won't try that gambit. We'll see. But even pushing aside the budget debates, we don't even have a full set of regulations about the banking industry. They can't even agree what a conventional mortgage looks like. We live in this sort of period of policy uncertainty that's having an influence on things. Now, the fundamentals will keep us going, but next year, 3% would be optimistic, I think. 2.5%, probably more realistic. But again, if we'd actually get somebody in D.C. who would get some of these things resolved, focus on things that are important as opposed to things that aren't, it could probably be a much better year than that.
Now, why do you think that doesn't relate to them saying, okay, we'll pull back on
because
Fed fund buying?
Yeah, you're talking about tapering, and the presumption here, of course, is that somehow or other quantitative easing has had this huge impact on long-term interest rates. Not really. It's kind of a psychological game. It's always been a psychological game. They were kind of pushed him to abnormally low levels, and when he even whispered tapering, they kind of bumped back up to what I would see as a realistic place for them to be. I mean, maybe they'll go up, 40 bips, but that's about it. Ultimately, we live in a world awash with capital. Our central bank is being loose. Other central banks are loose. We have, of course, large economies in Asia that are growing rapidly, and they have a lot of savings that they're trying to move out of their country. Ultimately, what that means is interest rates are going to remain low. I mean, some Chinese rating agency just downgraded U.S. government debt. At the same time, they announced that their treasury now holds the most amount of U.S. government bonds they ever had, $3 trillion. So, talk about talking out of both sides of your mouth, right?
John, usually the builders have a bigger piece of GDP than they do right now.
Right.
So what do you see for 2014, first on a national basis, and then I want to kind of back into what's going on in California?
The builders have actually been pretty optimistic, as you pointed out back in June. The problem is they can't grow their business because there was $0 devoted to land development and land entitlement during the downturn, so they're trying to get some of that kick-started again, and it's taken them forever. And there really are two kinds of builders out there. There's the public home builders who've had insane access to cash. I kid you not, one of them raised $250 million at a 0.5% interest rate. Yeah.
Now, okay.
Yeah.
What's the
Another one got it at I think it was 4.5%, 5% for 30 years.
And this is bond?
These are bonds.
Okay.
Because the bond market is, but with interest rates being so low, if you're running a bond fund, I mean, to get any kind of yield, these guys are desperate. So I think there's a huge appetite for mortgages, honestly, in today's environment. I don't know why he's buying any mortgages. But then there's the private builder world, who's trying to get loans from construction lenders, who want to see a lot of equity, and then they're trying to buy land, and some guy with a really low borrowing cost of 4% can buy all the land and develop it at a 4% interest rate. A private builder can't pay that price and just can't get it done.
Okay.
So it doesn't pencil for him.
Then why aren't the national builders really busy in California, or are they trying to be?
They're trying to be.
Okay,
Honest to God, the complaint I hear number one is the shortage of land.
Well, that's not going to change, right?
Well, and there is a stigma associated with being in some of the sub-markets where they wrote off 90 to 100% of what they paid in the premium. Right. So there definitely is a stigma to going to Victorville and some of these other, and Hemet and other places. If you bring that deal back to corporate, I mean, it better look smoking good. And these guys have not been bringing those deals to corporate for that reason. But if it's in Ontario or Cucamonga or a good location, I mean, they're paying actually close to peak land prices now for some of finished lots in some of those good locations.
Would that pencil if you add construction costs?
No. Construction costs are way down. They're relying on a lot of home price appreciation, so they must be listening to you.
Okay, but no, it's like the time of day. It's, okay, but there's a little bit of a ramp-up period when you decide, okay, right, we can build something. What is the ramp-up period? So you say, okay, now it'll pencil, but you haven't carved this hill up. What's the time?
If you look at the 90s downturn, it was a 4 to 5 year ramp-up period. I mean, construction hit bottom, in 93? Yeah. 94, 95, 96, there wasn't a heck of a lot of construction going on. It really only started to trickle up in 97, 98, 99. I see the same scenario from a lot supply playing out this time around as last time.
There's a thought that since they're not creating subdivision, it must be because they just are sitting on lots of finished building lots. True or false?
No, totally false.
Okay.
Totally false. I mean, if they had finished lots that they could build on, they would be building on them like crazy. Why wouldn't they have been the last year? They could have made a lot of money selling homes there. I
was baffled, but I don't get this no subdivision creation.
There's a data company that calculates the number of finished lots, and it's like at an all-time low right now.
Okay.
Now, mind you, at the national level, that might be true, but at the national level, you're not seeing that kind of huge numbers. I mean, there's been a softening in new single-family home sales over the course of the summer. Hasn't really bounced back at all. There's growing inventories. And the inventories of existing single-family homes at the national level up 50% over the course of the last 8 months or so. So at least at the national level, you're not seeing that same sort of trend.
Say that one more time, up 50%.
So they have the census has an estimate of a number of single-family homes for sale, just basic inventory, and it's up about 50% over the course of the last year or so. So I mean,
from 2 to 3, or from 3,000 to?
No, I mean it's still for month supply is still relatively low, but we're talking about 120,000 to about 180,000.
Okay.
Nationally, but it's rising, and I think that I really think that the new home market is being stymied in large part by the lack of credit. I mean, you're really dealing with a situation where you show the numbers, what they're looking for in terms of a Fannie Freddie loan, 750 now, it used to be 710. That knocks out 15% of the buying public.
John, who's the buyer of a new home? Is it a move-up buyer or is it a new buyer?
It's somebody who got their last mortgage 15 years ago. They're moving up or they're moving down. It is heavily, heavily skewed to that group. And Leslie's data showed it really well. The entry-level buyer has really been missing in this recovery, and it's stunning to me.
But the entry-level buyer then can't even buy the builder's home. And why would a builder build a small home if he can build a big home?
Well, the math is such that if you have to pay a silly price for land, you have to build a big home.
Exactly.
On it. So because of the demand-supply dynamic in the land market, it's forcing them to build bigger homes than probably they would choose to.
When you say builders have confidence, and that's what I heard, they get that feedback from somebody that they trust.
Well, the public builders look at the stock price every day, and when the stocks are way up, they go, oh, people love me, and they want me to grow. My shareholders are buying more, and they want me to grow my business. And but the stocks rallied a lot this year and have given almost all of it back at this point. So that video you were referring to is in June. It would be a little bit of a different tone if we had that video today.
I was kind of wondering, you would think the lessons would really have been learned, but usually we start drinking the same Kool-Aid every time it gets good.
Well, the lesson for them is to manage your balance sheet right, and they have. I mean, they've got very little debt due in the next 3 or 4 years. So for the first time in their careers, they've got long-term capital at a really low interest rate to play with, and that's what they're doing.
Okay. Kind of on a different subject, but I know this audience, and some of us are actually concerned that we have debt levels that are not so good. So, Christopher, I'm going to go through a list of these, then we'll backtrack and talk a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10, you're really scared, okay? Level of concern of the total national debt.
3.
Okay. Level of concern on California's debt.
3.
Okay.
No, we're talking about finance debt. We're talking about outstanding.
Yeah, like $17 trillion
Yeah.
for the, right.
What?
For the national debt, you got seven.
Well, it's not 17 trillion. It's 12 trillion. You got a lot of that sitting in the government's own hands.
Okay.
Net outstanding debt significantly.
So they lent it to themselves.
They lent it to themselves?
Yeah. Well, the Social Security Administration has been buying debt to pay off future obligations. They have some modest degree of basic accounting skills, and they have bought a lot of the debt.
So I have to trust that there's, okay. Student debt.
3.
Okay. National deficit, as far as annual.
3.
3. I knew this would happen.
He's running for office, I think.
All right. Let's see if we can get a 4 or more. What about the shortfall in retirement accounts? The shortfall in retirement accounts?
Oh, you mean the people who don't have savings?
No, people that have defined benefit plans that think they're going to get paid in full, where if you start looking at...
Oh, I'd put that at like an 8.5. Yeah, now you're talking.
Now I'm talking.
Yeah.
We finally hit one.
You're talking about Social Security and things like that.
Well, no, that's the next
public
one.
Pensions?
Yeah, public
okay,
pensions.
public pensions. You got to be a little clear. You're
I'm
throwing
sorry.
gobbledygook at me.
Okay.
Just give me the name, will you? Yeah, 8.5.
And what about...
Oddly enough, public pensions are bad. But California actually is one of the bad states. Look at Illinois.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas has a worse pension problem than we do, underfunded pension problem. Seriously, it's a Moody's Assist report. It's pretty. Now, don't get me wrong. I just means I'm a 6.5 in California, and it's an 8.5 for the nation overall. But it's a huge problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's court cases right now about some of the cities have declared bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And normally what happens is that kind of debt is considered senior debt. And that's probably going to get challenged. I don't know if it's going to change, but...
Well, no, it's already being challenged. I mean, what you're talking about, of course, is the fact that when you think about, it's not even senior debt. According to the Michigan Constitution and the California Constitution, these local, state, and local public pensions are supposed to be sacrosanct. You can't touch them. So even if you declare bankruptcy, the city is still on the hook for that. That is being challenged and will almost certainly be overthrown because, remember, when a city goes bankrupt, it ends up in federal court. It's a federal bankruptcy court. And federal law trumps state law, and if the bankruptcy judge says, you're on the hook, you're on the hook. It's as simple as that. And CalPERS has already made the statement that if they indeed lose this particular legal issue, they will indeed garnish those pension payments for the people who are in the San Bernardino system.
Through what entity? Garnish who?
The people who are receiving, the people who have the defined benefit, the retirees in the system today will lose a portion of their payments.
Okay. Now that's a serious problem because who made that promise? I guess that's what I'm getting down to. If you said that about Social Security, we'd all have a problem with that because there was a promise made, but that, in a way,
No, but hang on. Social Security is not going to be there for everybody either. That's not going to last either. That's another 8.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
no, I get that 6.5. Medicare's a 9.5.
Okay. Short term, you feel much better than long term?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the problem. You know, you listen to the screaming debates going on in D.C., and it really has to do, you have these gerrymandered districts, complete collapse in any kind of controls of campaign finance laws, and we end up with two groups of zealots, one on the left, one on the right. One's making a huge amount of noise about something that's not important, the other one's completely ignoring the things that are important, and gee, I wonder why nothing's getting done.
John, are we going to, California's got gradually improving unemployment. Are we going to fix unemployment without the participation of the builder? Or are we just going to stay unusually high?
I mean, the builder's doing their damnedest. The other complaint I hear, besides finished lots, is lack of labor.
Okay.
Which you go, what? But people don't want to come back to the industry.
It's been a hiatus for a long time.
And they found jobs elsewhere, and it's not as hard of work. And the labor rates also fell 30% or more during the downturn, so the rates are going to have to come back up to attract people back, and I think that'll happen. But the skilled labor is gone.
Okay. Well, what percentage of California usually is new homes versus existing? I mean, it's not...
Yeah, I don't remember, but I do have one good stat. In the last 12 months, we've built as many homes in Houston as we've built in the entire state of California. So that'll since single-family homes, that'll tell you what it's like to try and get home construction done in California, because believe me, they're trying just as hard here as they are in Texas. Government's getting in the way.
Okay. Does California have a lot more restrictions in the way than a Texas would?
It costs, your permits in Carlsbad cost more than the construction cost in San Antonio.
Wouldn't there be a good idea for them to lower those?
Oh, they're raising them.
They're raising them.
Because of all the deficit stuff.
Okay.
Well, no. It has to do with Prop 13.
Oh, here we go. We'll get back to that one, okay? We don't have time to deal with that one. We'll talk about that when we get everybody up here. I guess, we're going to have to switch seats here in a minute, but one of the things that I really wanted to know is, okay, as a person that provides product, this group buys and sells homes, and usually the new home is a competitor that has a fair amount of volume. I don't see the new lot creation to making that a factor.
Yeah. There's no risk to you in competing with a lot of new home supply for the next 3 years. None.
Is it possible that if we had price aggression that mimicked 2013, that the builders would completely miss this upside in California because they didn't have product ready?
I think there's a case for that. I mean, they kind of looked back at 2013 and saying, holy mackerel, I was expecting that kind of appreciation over the next 4 to 5 years, and we had it in 12 months.
Right.
And now I'm having to pay near peak prices for land. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, they're looking at actually the future of their business right now is very risky because of the cost of entry, which is land, is insanely high.
Why didn't they buy with both hands in 2008 or 9? Were they unable?
They called every single bank in California 1,000 times. And there was actually surprising to me, a lot of the landowners took the land back, kept the deposit, and had no urgency to sell and said, you know what, I'm just not selling during the downturn. I'm not selling it to you at the price you want, and they held on to it, and they were wise to be holding on to it, but it held construction back.
Okay. Christopher, last question in this segment. Are you concerned about inflation?
No.
No.
Look, and this goes back to the whole quantitative easing issue. You got to keep something in mind. 85% of all cash pumped into the economy through quantitative easing is not in the economy. It's sitting in the banks, form of excess reserves. As for bank lending, it has not accelerated. It has actually decelerated. And right now it's about, maybe up 1% over the course of the last year because the banks aren't lending again because of the regulatory uncertainty. So the money's sitting there. It's completely neutered. And inflation is a 0% chance anytime in the next 2 years.
Okay. John, last question for you right in this segment. The builders that are building, are they surprised by the product that their customer wants? Is that come up where the customer said, you know what, you were thinking you were going to build this, but we'd really prefer this?
I don't think they'd say they're surprised. They're building different homes.
Okay.
During the downturn, they built a box with a roof on top, because they were trying to compete with the foreclosures.
Okay.
Right now, the consumer has said, when you buy something new, you expect the latest, greatest technology, so they want extreme energy efficiency. They want great rooms. It's a different type of design, but they're willing to leave the dining room out altogether to get a price per square foot that works for them. So they're building some new product, which I think is a competitive advantage, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, it's different. Who is the senior group that is retiring? Yeah. And it's basically our generation. Are they really wanting to downsize? We've sort of been spoiled the whole time, so I just wondered if we're actually...
it's not necessarily a smaller home. It's a lower maintenance home.
Okay.
And it's a different home. I mean, when you've got little kids, you want to be upstairs near the kids. When you've got teenagers, you want them on the other side of the house. And when you get older, you want a master bedroom downstairs. And so they're kind of picking a different product that's lower maintenance. And some of the homes that they're buying are pretty good sized because they want the kids and the grandkids to come back.
Okay. What about demographics? And I'll ask both of you this question. Demographics inside of the next 10 years, is it a different story in the second 10 years when real estate really is, the baby boom generation is really tossing out a lot more homes than can be absorbed? Is there a difference in those 2 decades, I guess?
I don't think so. Not that much. I think you're going to find as time goes on, those boomers are going to be reluctant to leave.
Well, they're not going, we don't want to leave, but that's
Well,
kind
I
of
know,
what
but-
happens.
but
20 years from now, most of us are going to leave.
Because whatever, you're missing my point. I'm sorry.
30, okay?
Yes, I don't think they're going to let go on that front either, but that's a different issue. No, look, you're dealing with a world in which population growth is still increasing. The boomers are not that big. What they are is a sort of a convex point. My generation, the slackers, X, we're actually larger on a year-by-year basis than the boomers are, just not much larger. So there's still lots of demand out there. So, and with immigration, if we ever get some immigration reform, that's obviously bringing it on shore. And you said yourself, look at all the foreign buyers moving. A lot of folks are interested in being here, and they're going to make their way here one way or the other.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're actually doing a lot of research on this right now, and I'll end with a couple boomer stats. There's 40% of the owned households right now are owned by somebody 55 or older. So we're
40% of
the owned households are owned by someone 55 and older, and
Okay.
that's just going up. And we treat everybody over 55 as if they're one person. We don't treat a 25, 35, and 45-year-old the same. Why do we treat a 55 and over? And there's a lot of product opportunities for 65, 75, and my great statistic there is the largest master plan community in the country is called The Villages, which is outside Orlando. They sell about 3,000 homes per year. They have 50,000 golf carts in the Villages. It's true. Some of them are worth like $30,000. But anyway, the typical resident in the Villages, you can't get into your 55, but the typical resident there buys 2.5 homes. So they buy while they still own the home in Michigan, and they're kind of spending half their time. Then they move full-time after they sell the home in Michigan and upgrade to something bigger. And then they need something that's a little lower maintenance and more assisted, and then they buy their third home.
Okay.
And you're going to start talking about segmentation in this older group now. There's a lot of opportunity there. And that is not what our resale stock looks like at all.
Okay. Has the definition of household changed a lot since, let's say, 25 years ago, where before it was 2 adults that are married and 2.3 kids, and how has that changed what we can afford?
Well, that's an interesting question. America is very unique, is that we expect to throw our kids out when they become adults. The rest of the country welcomes them to hang around. The rest of the world welcomes them to hang around. Of course, you want to live with mom and dad. Why wouldn't you want to buy a home with your brother? Seriously, because then you help it. The Hispanic families do that. You got built-in babysitting. There's a lot of things going on there. And you're joking, but this is how the rest of and our percentage of population is growing from these groups. The Pew Center put out a study. I think 17% of households now live multi-generationally, which means there's 2 generations of adults in the home. How many homes were built designed like that? Not a lot.
Right.
So it is changing, and the baby boomers actually like their kids, and are encouraging them to stay in the house when they're in their early 20s, and the kids are saying, "Hey, this is a pretty good deal." So that's been a pretty big change too.
Well, that's been a change to household creation too.
Big time.
Because
And I
if
think
we
that's
thought
part
they
of the
were
reason behind that lack of entry-level buyer is they're saying, I can live for free with mom and dad, and I don't have to worry about what's in the fridge.
Well, when you have your family, I've got a son, Aaron, that's in that kind of age range, and it seems like in the last year or two, everybody made the adult decision to get out of the back bedroom. So I don't know if that generation sort of had it with living there, or the mom and dad is tired of them being there, but that's going to create some households, it looks like to me.
And I agree. And when they have kids, I think that's the ultimate, okay, I got to get out of the house.
Right, or they finally get married. Christopher, any thoughts on the household formation or the household changing?
Well, there's good news is the household formation is starting to pick up with the improving economy, and obviously that's good news for the housing industry. As for, the idea of size of households, number of people per household continues to fall in the U.S. It's not going up, it's going down.
But that's skewed by the fact that we're living longer. So that's
Or
what's
the case
dragging
could
it
be.
down, and then your 25-year-old is dragging it up. But he's right.
Okay. Anything I should have asked that I didn't?
Yeah, you want to ask me about my Prop 13 comment.
You're for Prop 13, no? No. Okay.
We're good.
We'll talk about that later. Okay. Thank you guys very much. All right. Our next two panelists are going to come up. I'll first introduce Leslie Appleton-Young. That was a good idea, by the way. That's a good. Leslie is the Vice President and Chief Economist of the California Association of Realtors, a statewide trade organization with over 195,000 members. No?
164.
164. 31,000 of them bit the dust. But they're coming back.
Do you want me here?
Yeah, that's fine. No one wants me to read their bio. She's actually one of my favorite interviews. And my all-time favorite, I think I'll save this phone call. When I first interviewed her on the radio, she didn't know me from Adam, and she was sick. And she said, "How long is this?" And I said, 2 25-minute segments. And you could just hear on the other end of the phone going, "Oh, no." Because she speaks a lot, you can get pretty tired doing that. Well, they went well. The interviews went really well. She said, actually, that was really the best interviews I've ever had. And within an hour, we gave her a gift basket full of medicine stuff and all that.
It was full of Campbell's soup. It was adorable. But the other backstory to us is I heard that someone was grumbling about our housing affordability index and the methodology changed. And this person that was grumbling very loudly in the Inland Empire was named Bruce Norris. And I called him up, and it was love at first sight.
We've had a good relationship. But she called and left a message saying it wasn't necessary to do the gift basket, with tears in her voice. And it's really my all-time favorite recording, so I've kept it forever. Sean O'Toole is the creator of PropertyRadar and now PropertyRadar. Sean was a successful trustee sale buyer, having bought over 150 properties. He's become a friend of mine. And we actually disagree on some pretty major things once in a while. But the one thing that we really have developed is a trust in each other's intent and process. And so one of my favorite things is, okay, we both do each the honor of setting aside what we thought we knew completely to listen to the other side of the table as best we can. And that's hard to do because, we both study really hard for our conclusions, and the tendency would be as soon as he says something, I go, well, no, but what about this? But if you can give up winning for just a minute, you actually can go, okay, you have a point. And so we each add a piece of the puzzle when we come up to better conclusions. And so I'm probably going to have to go through some of that tonight in front of you guys. So welcome to both of you. And Leslie, we'll start with you. Just delivered your sort of state of the real estate for 2014. So what do you expect? Well, I'm going to go down a list of some things. Volume of sales.
Volume of sales will be up 3 to 4% next year.
Okay. Are we starting this year with less inventory?
No.
With more?
We've had an uptick in inventory for the last 3 months or so.
Year over year, though, are we starting this year with less in 2000 and?
Yes, but the gap is closing.
Gap's closing?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we now? We're 3.1?
It was 3.1. It's now 3.6. 3.7 was the data that came out for September. And that's a ratio of listings to sales.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's because you think, did sales go down? They kind of might have.
Yeah, and a little bit, but you had one of those slides that showed the really sharp reduction in underwater mortgages in California, and that's one of the things that's feeding into inventory a little bit. You also have a little bit more, investors were, renting out properties, in one of the surveys that we do, 82% of the investors were renting out instead of flipping.
Mhm.
And that's starting to change. You're seeing a little bit more emphasis on the flipping, now. So those two things are helping to get inventory going. You also have sellers that were on the sidelines kind of watching the market. And, when rates started to go up in May, I think the whole tenor of the market started to change a little bit. And even though rates are still remarkably low, they're not as low as they were. And that got some of the sellers on the sidelines getting into the market. But the market's overshooting itself, so we're seeing more discounts from list price because everyone is overly optimistic typically when they list their home. So we really are, I think, at a bit of a tipping point in terms of market dynamics.
Okay. The mix of sales has really radically changed year over year. So now we're really getting back to what would be a normal percent of equity sales, let's say in years that were not really affected by REOs?
90-95%.
Yeah.
And we're almost there. I think we're at over 87% retail or traditional sales. And it's really messed up the median home price because our median home price has been up 1 month this year. It was up 30% on a year-over-year basis. And it really was just 2/3 of that was really a change in the mix of what was selling. So that's why we're seeing.
We don't want to hear that.
I'm sorry, but that's why. That's why this year the California median home price is up. I don't know I can't remember any numbers right now, but 27%, something like that. And our forecast for next year is 6% because all of that mix adjustment has pretty much played itself out.
So you're really looking at actually, your price projection for median price for 2014 was 440?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something around there. So 6% increase over this year.
And what are we, 440 now? I just have to mess with you a little bit.
Selma, help me.
I think we were at 440.
We're close.
But what's interesting is median is really one of the longest pricing structures. And it's consistently inaccurate, but at least it's consistent.
I'm going to take that hit and say that I am an agnostic when it comes to data. I just want to know what it is. And I agree. The median home price the last couple of years has been ridiculous. Average home prices have been even worse. Doing a quartile analysis makes a lot more sense. The Case-Shiller index, which really isn't buffeted by changes in the mix of what's selling, is great. I mean, that's one of the big differences in the 30 years I've been at CAR. We used to, way back when, be the only game in town for California data, and now you've got, Trulia and Zillow and FHFA, and everybody's out there with their numbers. And I think the good thing is eventually everybody tells the same story, right? So in 2012, everyone could breathe a sigh of relief because the national housing market and national housing prices were all telling the same story, right? Everybody was up. But in California, that happened 3 years earlier because of people like you that sold in 2005 and bought like crazy in 2007, right?
Well, a little later than that.
2008? Okay, well, yeah.
Okay. Sean, you have done really a fabulous job of making buying foreclosures easier for the masses. Thank you very much. No, it really has changed the dynamics. If you've ever tried to get a list of properties years ago, it was thousands of dollars. And I always think it's funny when you talk to people that are really young and they look at his website and $50 or whatever it is, just they can't, why would you pay that? You have no idea what you're talking about, my goodness. So what do the numbers look like to you, let's say a year ago to now, as far as REO count? There's still this suspicion. We really want there to be shadow inventory that's going to creep up and bite us, but do you see that?
I mean, both new foreclosure starts and foreclosure sales, both down about 60% year over year.
Okay.
You know, it's still, people come to me and say, you know, you switch from foreclosure radar to property radar because the foreclosures are gone. You know, our customers bought $500 million worth of property last month at the courthouse steps. So, you know, it's still, there's still a little business there.
Yeah.
For sure. And in fact, with Property Radar, we improved our foreclosure features. So I think foreclosures are going to be with us for a while. We still have a lot of folks underwater. But clearly, foreclosures are way down. I mean, look, we've had the federal government, the state government, just about everybody say that foreclosures are the problem, and they set out to stop foreclosures, and they've been relatively successful. Now, whether or not foreclosures are the problem, I think is a whole different question. I think it's negative equity. There, we're only down about 50% in California from when this all started.
We're down, what now, the numbers of people
the
that
number
have a
of folks
negative?
underwater in their home has only dropped about 50%.
5-0.
5-0.
Okay.
Think about how far into this we are.
Yeah, it's a long ways.
For those folks that are still underwater, I don't think this feels like much of a recovery.
No, and there's areas that were over double, you know,
Yeah.
or half the value of their property was half of their loan amount, so that has taken longer for those people. Are enough of them delinquent that we could have any issue with lots of inventory showing up, you know, and assisting the 3.7 months to getting to 6 months?
Yeah, roughly a third of them right now are delinquent or in foreclosure, one of the two.
And they're delinquent a fair percentage of day. I mean, it's a long time. They're not going to make that loan current, apparently.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's no question we've made huge improvements on principal balance loan modifications, short sales. But, you know, just again today, the servicers kind of reaffirmed that they've met all the national servicing requirements. You know, 2012 was kind of the year of the short sale, and part of that was because there were huge incentives to the banks to push short sales through.
Mm-hmm.
That ended at the end of the year. Now, short sales are still a pretty important part of the market right now. Still, you know, short sales and REOs are 25% of home sales.
In California?
So, yeah, when people say they're gone, that's still a pretty substantial percentage of the market.
Okay, if we have 87% equity sellers, how do we get to the 25? I'm not being argumentative.
I disagree with that number.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that was going to happen.
Well, we look at the MLS data of properties that closed in a given month. So the data that just came out was like 87% traditional equity, about 3.5% REO, and about 10% short sales. So I don't know if those numbers are right or wrong in the global context, but certainly in the context of MLS data, I feel pretty confident about them.
We are measuring apples and oranges too. I'm
Okay.
looking at public records data.
Right.
And so we, of course, know which houses the banks have foreclosed on, so we track that, which ones they've resold. And then we also, we estimate how much debt folks have, and if they sell at a price below that debt, we call that a short sale, whether or not the person came out of their pocket. It was still a distressed sale. They maybe came up with money out of their pocket instead of the lender taking the hit. And then you have the issues of, you know, MLS data is great, but you don't always have people list that it's a short sale or an REO. So we're going to pick that up even though it may not. And we're going to pick up all the pocket listings and the bulk sales and all of these other things that never hit the MLS.
While we were driving over, you shared with me that you have, you know, your own feeling about what the median price movement was, but then you, since you have access to a new toy, you said, okay, something about the distressed inventory moved differently than non-distressed inventory. So share with us what was going on there.
So by our data, we have a median price increase from last year of about 25%. And we put it at 400,000 right now, so a little lower.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that, though, is we broke that into two groups, distressed and non-distressed, right? And distressed sales are up about 16%. The median price of all distressed sales was up about 16%, right? So you think, wow, the median price of non-distressed had to go up quite a lot to make up for that. But that's only up 10%. The rest is a shift.
You're making my head
from
hurt,
mostly from a lot more distressed, right, to a lot more non-distressed. So when you take the median price, it moved up, even though prices in those two groups moved up considerably less. The mix moved it up more. So, you know, did home values go up 25%? I don't think so.
No. But there's a much stronger demand for distressed properties than there is for the traditional equity sales. And the inventory is lower and the price appreciation is still higher, absolutely.
What's going to happen to first-time buyers, you think, in 2014? And why aren't they a participant to the extent, percentage-wise, that they normally would be at this stage?
They want to participate, but they can't. They don't have a job. They don't have a down payment. They have student loan debt. They can't compete with all-cash buyers. FHA is no longer a competitive program for many of them.
Why?
Because the fees are up, and loan limits may be coming down. I mean, there's a lot of things on the horizon that are going to impact them negatively. So that's one of the really problems with something like the Housing Affordability Index, because it gives you a number, but it doesn't give you the context of the market, right? And how tight, I know you put up the FICO scores, right? And I think Chris mentioned, you know, just from 750 to 710, you get rid of 15% of the market. Well, it's really a shame, you know, because there's a lot of, you know, young potential home buyers that at 715 are a really great risk, right? But they can't get loans and they can't compete in this marketplace. So one of the positive things a little bit about rates coming up is that refi activity has gone down, and lenders have been, I've at least heard this anecdotally, a little bit more interested in making loans with, you know, a little bit.
From your membership, I'm sure you get lots of feedback. Do they find that there's a lot of overlays that on top of what they think is available for loan products, that the lenders have things that are more restrictive than, you know, what they think is going to be out there, and then they can't get loans that they thought they could?
You know, I'm not sure how to answer that, except it's just very challenging, you know, when you're working with someone that needs a loan. And that's why the we do a survey every year where we ask realtors about their last closed transaction, and we've been doing it for 35 years. And last year we had the highest percentage of all cash. It was 30%. We had 17% of the realtors saying, I was working with an investor. So that's, you know, if you have a buyer I've heard of, you know, there's 50 offers on one property, and if there's any kind of contingency, a loan contingency, an appraisal contingency, whatever kind of contingency, they're not even looking at them.
Right.
Now, the market's changed a little bit, so instead of 50, maybe there's only 10 offers, or maybe 4 offers. So it's all a question of degree. But just to circle back, I think this whole issue of first-time buyers is absolutely critical. And at my organization, we really are gearing back up for a huge housing affordability problem and a need to reach out to first-time home buyers and help them get in the ballpark, you know, because they just can't compete in this market. It's really tough.
Now, when you say you're gearing up for a affordability problem?
Well, yeah. So we're going to put on 6 regional homebuyer fairs next year, just reaching out to potential first-time home buyers to talk to them about. I mean, I think with respect to that group, you have to speak to them early and often before, because they can find homes on their own. It's like, how do they save money? How do they get their debt in order? You know, Freddie Mac has this wonderful program called Credit Smart that's on their website that really helps people kind of understand the responsibilities of home ownership and how to get in. And I think just as an organization, we're getting much more focused on that because it's the big issue, or one of the big issues going forward. And whatever happens in Washington with respect to the mortgage interest deduction and the GSEs and so on and so forth, I think we can probably all agree that it's not going to get easier. Just not.
Okay. Sean, you and I, you know, when I was doing the last report, you provided data for hedge fund participation.
Yeah.
Why don't we share a little bit about, you know, what they've bought during, let's say, those years that they were dominant, and are they Are they slowing down or being the same or changing locations? What's your feeling on that?
So the way we measure it is purchases by LLCs, LPs.
Okay.
And that peaked in October 2012 at about 10% of sales.
Okay.
And it's now down 55% last month to just under, or right around 5% of sales.
Now, when you say that could have been some people in this room, right?
Well, yeah, the LLC LP is a little bit broader. We definitely have plenty of small, professional investors that buy in those kinds of entities. So it does include them as well.
Okay.
But it seems we've gone through and handpicked some of them out from some of the names that we know, but overall, it's tens of thousands of records. So that's been the fastest way to kind of measure it, keep track. Some of these folks are creating new entities every month, so tying them back to the parent entity gets a little tough, and they use strange names.
Okay. Do you consider that they've been a market maker forcing prices upward? And do you consider them dangerous if they exit?
I think absolutely. I think they realized early on that home prices were well below where they should have been, that ROIs were higher than really they should have been, and saw the buying opportunity and came in a big way and took advantage of that. And I think it's pretty clear that the reason they've left the building or leaving the building is because prices have risen to a point where those ROIs are no longer attractive. So I think that makes all perfect sense.
Are they keeping that inventory, or are they all making sort of scattered decisions?
Yeah, so on the exit side, you certainly have some that have decided to exit. The Colony folks have said they're exiting, but they're primarily looking for another bulk purchaser to kind of take that portfolio on, rather than to say, hey, we're going to drop these single-family homes out there. Back in, I think it was 2004, there was a gentleman that bought like 300 homes. I don't remember the story exactly, in the Sacramento area. And he decided in 2004 that he'd seen enough appreciation and wanted out. And he went to evict all 300 tenants at the same time. And the government jumped in and actually said, no, you can't do that. He's like, well, why can't I? And so they ended up negotiating with him that he would sell them slowly over a period of time. I don't think any of the hedge funds, even if they decide this isn't a business they want to be in anymore, is going to just suddenly put all of their inventory, on the MLS. I think that the possibility of that's zero.
Have they been market makers in rent values?
I think they'd like to be, but I don't have any data there, so I can't really say for sure.
Okay.
I'm sure that I have some anecdotal stories from some principals that have said that they had hoped to see more rent appreciation than they'd seen, and that renting the homes is tougher, than they hoped. I think that's obvious to anybody in here who's owned a rental.
Leslie, just one last question. Loan limits declining. It's not so much the amount, but it seems like the intent. So if they lower loan amounts 5%, that's going to not be as big an effect, but that's not the intent to stop there, is it? As far as if that's going to be the trend, then those loan limits on FHA or Fannie Mae are really going to start changing in the future.
I think Chris really spoke to this really well. It's just there's so much policy uncertainty right now. There's a couple bills that were introduced, Senate, House, on the GSEs. They don't mesh. There's a new proposal out. I don't think anybody has any idea, but it makes it very difficult to kind of make long-term decisions about anything at all. But anything that reduces the loan limits in the current environment, where we've got, 85% of the loans being purchased by the GSEs, is going to be a problem for California. Now, we're still, our statewide median's at 440, and there were a couple of months at the peak of the market where the median was 625. In many areas, we're still 20-30% below that prior peak. That's not the case in the Bay Area,
No.
as an example, and in Silicon Valley. I mean, we're right up and kind of surpassing some of those areas. So, yeah, the loan limits are a huge issue.
Okay.
This event could not have been possible without the generous help of the following platinum partners: PropertyRadar and Sean O'Toole, Housing Wire, the Apartment Owners Association, the San Diego Creative Real Estate Investors Association and President Bill Tan, Investors Workshops and Sean Watkins, Angel Bronzegeist and Sarah Benora, Invest Club for Women and Iris Veneration and Bobby Alexander, San Jose Real Estate Investors Association and Geraldine Barry, MVT Productions, Rhoda Construction, Wilson Investment Properties, and White House Catering. For event video and information, visit isurvivedrealestate.com. The Norris Group would like to thank its gold sponsors for supporting I Survived Real Estate: Adrenaline Athletics, Claudia Buys Houses, Coldwell Banker Town and Country, Elite Auctions, Phoebe, for investors by investors, Home Vestors, In a Day Development, Inland Empire Investors Forum, Inland Valley Association of Realtors, Investor Experts, Inc., John Merrill Investments, Inc., Keystone CPA, Las Brisas Escrow, Lavis Associates, Northern California Real Estate Investors Association, Northern San Diego Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Real Estate Investors Association, Orange County Investment Club Phoebe, Personal Real Estate Magazine, Pilot Limo, Primary Residential Mortgage, Realty 411 Magazine, Real Wealth Network, REIExpo.com, Rick and Leanne Rossiter, Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors, Sonoka Corporation, Spinnaker Loans, UDirect IRA, Tony Alvarez, The Bottom Feeders, Tri-Emerald Financial Group, and Westin South Coast Plaza. See isurvivedrealestate.com for video of the live event and more on our sponsors.